and chairman of CAV PAC, and also the co-chair of the National Republican Redistricting Trust. Mike Pompeo is with us. Mike, you really need to get a resume.
Good morning, Glenn. Great to be with you.
Good to be with you, sir. Thank you for coming on. I want to talk to you about redistricting, but I have to ask you a question on a story that broke yesterday from Michael Isikoff, so take it for what it's worth, that says that the gist of the article, you were so obsessed with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks that you and the president were looking at really aggressive methods, including kidnapping or an assassination. One scenario included a possible shootout with Russian agents who you believed were going to try to get Assange for themselves.
Glenn, I've seen the piece. I knew they were writing on this thing. I'd say three things. First of all, it's Isikoff. We've seen he was a big Russia hoax perpetrator.
Yep, he was.
Yeah. So take that for what it's worth. Second, there are many stories out there now about how the president and I were engaged in things that were crazy, right? There's this talk about that there was an effort to drop a nuclear weapon on China in the last week's administration. This story is of that same ilk, right? I couldn't tell you who they have as their sources, but those sources didn't know what we were doing. And then the third point, I guess, Glenn, is we were very worried about the fact that we had bad actors who were stealing really, really sensitive material from the United States. And I make no apologies for the fact that we and the administration were working diligently to make sure that we were able to protect this important sensitive information from whether it was cyber actors in Russia or the Chinese military or anyone who was trying to take this information away from us. Not just commercial stuff like intellectual property theft, but real national security secrets. And so we were working hard to go after those bad actors who were trying to do that.
So was Assange and WikiLeaks, are they journalists in a media outlet or a hostile intelligence entity?
So I came to believe that they were, in fact, one of the first non-state hostile intelligence entities. They weren't engaged in even crappy reporting like Isikoff does. They were engaged in active efforts to steal secrets themselves and pay others to do the same in a way that violated both the central understandings that I think the American people get, and second, violated U.S. law as well. We were always careful. I'm all about a big, bold, strong First Amendment, but these folks were acting in ways that were deeply inconsistent with that.
Okay, they're redistricting now, and these last for 10 years. As they draw the district lines in 2021 and 2022, they'll be in place for 10 years. And that's how we elect officials. And it's embarrassing the way they snake through districts, quite honestly. You are coordinating the national redistricting strategy for the Republicans. Tell me what you're doing and why it's so important.
So, Glenn, the last time we did this, now coming on 10 years ago, the Republican Party went full hibernation mode. We played victim. We screamed at the Democrats for behaving badly and then suffered the consequences of this, where they drew maps that just couldn't get conservatives and Republicans to win.
Sure.
And so my view is enough. I want to crush them. I want to make sure we get fair maps every place we go. We've seen what happens when Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in charge with Democrat president at the White House these last 8 months. We have to make sure these maps are right and fair. And I want state elected officials who in the end get to make these decisions, Republican state elected officials, to say, no, we're going to be serious about this. This is a decade-long decision we're making. And if the Democrats threaten to sue, bring it on. We're going to make sure we have fair maps, and we're going to provide the resources and intellectual firepower to help those state elected officials litigate against these Democrats. It's a program on the other side run by Barack Obama and Eric Holder. Enough said.
They're really the one running the show, aren't they? Isn't Barack Obama and his people really running everything now?
On this redistricting effort, it's very clear. President Obama has gone out and fought for maps that if you showed them to the average American, regardless of their party, they'd say that's crazy. They're deeply unfair. By the way, they don't reflect what, Glenn, you and I know, right? One person, one vote, right? They're just fundamentally indecent. And so what we can't do is complain and whine and do nothing. We have to articulate our vision and then go out and fight and crush and never give an inch and fight these battles and win them and get fair maps so that we can get conservatives elected.
You know, I don't know if you know this, but John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, towards the end of their lives, they were corresponding with one another, and they said, this is going to fail. And they said, yes. The other one, yes, but the people will see what we were trying to do. And the other one said, we should have put more Leviticus in it. And apparently what they were talking about was the idea of stakes, that districts should just be blocks of, 500 or 1,000 people, and they should just be blocks. And those blocks just keep breaking up as the population gets more and more dense. That would stop all of this, wouldn't it?
It would. I'm familiar with that debate. They went at it hammer and tong for sure. They got a Senate that was represented by states, and then the deal to allow equal representation for the population in the House of Representatives. There were big fights about this. Here's what we know today. Today, not only Democrats and progressives, but even the courts have permitted these districts to be drawn in ways that are partisan and that reflect the worst of factions that those very founders were trying to stop. We shouldn't do that. We should go back to a more traditional set of understandings. The Democrats create these commissions that have this veneer of nonpartisanship. They'll put 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the commission. We get rolled. We just can't let that happen. We cannot let them draw districts. Not just at the federal level, but county commission districts, state legislative districts. These things all matter for a decade. I'm convinced, Glenn, that with fair maps, the conservative voices will be heard and we'll have good things happen all across America.
This is why we have people like Nancy Pelosi in, because the districts are so crazy that they don't represent the truth. They represent a line, really, that snakes around to try to capture the people they want to capture. And so the districts become more and more extreme, even if that district is not extreme. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. You absolutely have it right. Take a look at what's going on in California, where they control the state legislature and the governorship. They're going to draw out a couple of members of Congress, or at least they're contemplating it, who won in close races last year. They'll make it nearly impossible for them to continue to serve and, frankly, to reflect the values of the people that they've been tasked to represent. They'll make these liberal districts. They'll make them 55-45 Democrat, and they will try, as they might, to hang on to this little bit of power, because in the end, Glenn, it's all about power for the progressives, and we have to make sure that these fair maps prevent that from happening for another decade.
How much does the census play a role in this?
It's a big deal. It obviously drives the data set that gets used in litigation and for state legislators to make their decisions. So, the fact that there were questionable outcomes from this past census certainly concerns me.
Can you go into that? Because I don't think most people paid attention. That happened when everybody was talking about the election.
Well, there are 2 things. One, there was a big court case. Secretary Ross had filed a court case. There's a lot of argument that says that the Constitution only intended citizens to be counted as part of the census. We were unsuccessful at that, so now you have census decisions. That is, how many members of Congress one state gets, decided on how many people are there, even if they're here illegally. And then the second thing, the timing of the release of the census and the contents of the census were all, in the end, controlled by the Democrats. And this will make it easier for Democrats, and that's why the work that we're engaged in is even so much more important.
So what do you need from people? Anything?
No, just we need them to encourage their state elected officials, their state assemblymen, their state delegates, their state representatives, their state senators. Get a backbone. Be tough. Don't give in. Don't just say, oh, goodness, this won't happen. This won't affect me. It affects every family all across America. Make sure that we're watching what's going on in this redistrict. If they see it coming off the rails in their state, to raise the flag, and we will come to provide the support they need to get fair maps so they can actually make sure their vote matters.
Mike, can I ask you 2 questions to jobs you used to have? One, I don't know if I don't know what to trust anymore. I don't trust our Justice Department. I don't trust our intelligence community anymore. Can you talk me off the ledge, or should I be on this ledge?
So here's my best, and I'll speak for the organization I ran. I saw what happened to the FBI. It became deeply politicized. I also saw that there was risk that happening at the other intelligence organizations, including the one that I ran at CIA. My predecessor was a fellow named John Brennan.
Mm-hmm.
He brought real politics into how they did analysis of the data that was collected. My second observation is most of the folks who work at the CIA are good people, a lot of ex-military folks, significant piece of them. These are people who are trying to do their jobs, execute on behalf of America, make sure we have good info for our decision makers. But if the political leadership is corrupted, if the people who are appointed and the people who are confirmed decide to drive politics down into whether it's the Justice Department or the FBI or any intelligence agency, this is where it comes unhinged. We saw that at the FBI. We've seen it in the Department of Education Civil Rights Division. We've seen it. We want good people with sound values leading those, and it's why these elections ultimately matter, because the people presidents put around them drive into those systems and processes.
And people ask me, because we were involved over in Afghanistan, people have asked me, Glenn, is the State Department, why would they intentionally thwart all of these things? And I answer the same way, that I believe there are good people in the State Department. In fact, I know there are, because there are some people that are helping, but they're at the lower levels. On the other, I can't give you an answer other than, if it was incompetence, occasionally things would break in America's favor. And they don't seem to.
No, this is policy. These are decisions that President Biden and his senior team made in Afghanistan. And I'll pause there for a second to say, bless you for the work you're doing, helping folks get out, helping Americans get out, helping those who we made promise to get out. It is critical work. Don't give up.
Thank you.
A handful of groups doing it. I know you know this. There's a handful of other groups doing it too.
Yeah,
we should all figure out how to work together.
We are.
Get folks out as quickly and as capably as that. So bless you and stay in that fight.
Thank you.
But you run into it. You run into it at senior State Department levels where they just need a clearance to fly, or they just need a single piece of paper well within the simple capacity of the State Department to deliver. And there is a down on from high decision not to do that. I can't explain it. I also can't articulate why they made the set of decisions they did around closing pogroms, pulling the military out before the civilians. These are unexplainable, and I think they drive to a deeper misunderstanding of who we are as Americans.
Mike, thank you very much. We'd love to have you on again. I'm a big fan, and I really appreciate everything that you've done.
God bless you.
Thank you.